I'm Christina.
I'm Maya from Bookworm Dreams.
And today we are doing a video review and discussion of Flowers for Algernon by Daniel Keyes. Yes. We kind of structured this around some crucial points. So we're going to start off by telling you who Daniel Keyes is. So he's an American writer. He was born in New York and he had a BA in psychology and MA in English and American literature. He also was the editor of a pulp magazine called Marvel Science Stories, and he also wrote like comics for the predecessor of Marvel Comics, so for Atlas Comics. He also worked as a writing professor, and his most noted work is Flowers for Algernon. So Flowers for Algernon was initially written in 1959 as a short story, and the same year won the Hugo Award for Best Short Story, and in 1966 it was expanded into a novel and won the Nebula Award for Best Novel. It also had multiple adaptations to, like the screen, movie, television, radio, but the most famous one was Charlie from 1968, starring Cliff Robertson, who actually won the Academy Award for Best Actor in that movie. And that's it with the technical information about the book. Now we're gonna move on. Maya will tell you something about the plot of the book because we actually read the book. That's why we're doing the review.
Alright, so Flowers for Algernon is a story that follows Charlie, who has very low IQ, and he undergoes an operation that would increase his IQ. And we follow the story through Charlie's progress reports. In the beginning, they're very short, with many grammatical and spelling errors, with very limited vocabulary. And as his operation is a success, as his IQ rises, so his reports become much better. We follow his emotional change, his intellectual change. And at the same time, he follows the progress of Algernon, which is a mouse or rat?
Mouse.
A mouse.
He's a mouse.
A mouse. So he was the first animal that
successfully underwent the operation.
That's the word I'm looking for. And when Algernon becomes sort of unpredictable and violent, and sort of things start going downhill, also Charlie starts wondering if the same thing is going to happen to him.
And we follow his journey actually on, discovering who he is,
how his past affects him,
and stuff like that. So some of the main themes that the book deals with is the treatment of mentally disabled people. That is very prominent in the book. And later on we will discuss this in more detail, which is going to be the spoiler section, so we're just giving you now like an overview of what's happening. Then we have, what do we have? What did we write? Okay, so what Maya said, how the past can influence a person in the future and kind of, what is the word? Condition the person's reactions in the future. And finally, how emotion, intelligence interact. How related they are, how that affects your happiness, and those are like the main topics.
Did you like the book?
Okay, so I like the book because I think the topics that it deals with is very important even to today's world, because although we do claim that we're like also open and tolerant, that's really not the case. I think especially in Croatia, people are still very much conservative and not understanding.
Unless they are in some way connected to a person that is mentally
disabled or
suffers from something, then no, they don't care.
Otherwise, no. And I think it was a very difficult read in that regard. It was very emotional. I don't know how you perceived it. It was very emotional, but for me, I couldn't really really fully commit to the emotion. Like, my brain was I understood that this was really difficult. This is so bad. I was mad at the people in the book, but like I didn't feel it here, I guess.
Okay.
I think what we talked about, I think it would have been much more impactful. I would have like probably sobbed if I've read the short story rather than the novel.
Yes. I agree with you. I think it works better as a short story because as he had to expand things, because the same thing happened with Ender's Game by Orson Card. As he expanded things, things and emotions became repetitive, so it kind of lost its impact. So if after the third time of you reading, how he feels the same or how he feels different, how he's wandering again, you know, what's happening with his family and so on. It's like, okay. So.
For example, in Flowers for Algernon, like for me, when he tried to explain to the scientists that he was working with that he was a person even before he like you said you
there was a line while they were at a conference and they said, well, it can be said that Charlie didn't exist until we made him smarter.
Yes.
So before this experiment. And I was like, okay, if he kills you now, I'm totally on his side.
Yeah, and that was so impactful.
Yes.
But after that, he repeated it like 4 or 5 more times later on, and it lost the impact. It lost, you know, I still felt like it was, oh my god, this is so true. Of course you were a person. You were the person the entire time of your existence. But just the conference and what happened later, that was the most impactful thing, and I think it just should have stayed there, not like kind of continued on explaining this, because I think in its essence you get what he was trying to say, because you get the entire book where they treat him as an object.
Yes.
Like literally as an experiment and not as a person who has feelings and emotions and whose intelligence actually kind of makes him realize stuff that he didn't realize before.
Yes.
Like if we go into the treatment of mentally disabled people, for example, with his co-workers.
Yes.
He
considers them as friends.
Yes, as Charlie, the disabled person, like the mentally disabled person, or as he literally refers to him as a moron. He considers to have friends. He doesn't consider himself to be lonely. Like he doesn't feel like he doesn't have a fulfilled life. He loves his job. He enjoys his job. But as he gets more intelligent, he realizes that he's missing true friends. He is missing love. He is constantly trying to learn new stuff. Like the knowledge that he has is no longer enough for him in any aspect. So he starts being lonely, frustrated. So it's like.
But then he does the same thing the scientists do to him.
Yes,
he
that's
starts
true,
regarding the people who are less intelligent than him as less worthy, and you know he doesn't find them important, I guess, anymore. And then later on, it's just using them, especially his neighbor, is it Faye? I think her name was.
Yeah.
Using them for his own purposes, and you know.
Yes, but I think in the end, I saw that I highlighted a line where so he actually kind of sees Charlie like him as being mentally disabled. He kind of sees him as a separate person
yes.
at certain moments, and at one point he says, when he regresses more and more, he says he asks, what is morality? Why is Charlie's darkness so much worse than his light, let's say? So he literally asks himself, who am I to decide if you're more you're more worthy of this world than I am?
Okay.
So I think he kind of realizes that he's doing that to people and like to himself basically, because he kind of, when he gets intelligent, he kind of pushes that side of him away, like as actually that's what people do, right? Like his mom and dad, his dad maybe less, but his mom really kind of pushes him. She doesn't want to accept that he maybe has a disability, that she has to work with him to help him to understand him, There's a lot of abuse.
Yes.
A lot of abuse. I think at one point she even tries to kill him.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot of like this family dynamic that is very bad, which ultimately affects him.
Yes.
Because he can't commit to Alice.
Mm-hmm. His love interest.
Yeah.
Well, this just sort of like how many stars did you give it? So we can go into the spoiler part later.
Well, I think this is already the spoiler.
I know, but I'm trying to find like a.
Okay, it's I gave it 3.5 stars.
Yes, I gave it 3 stars. I mean, as I said, if it was a short story and it ended after the conference, then it would have been a 5-star read because it was very interesting. But the whole repetitiveness of his emotion and his wondering is like, okay, you've said that already, so.
Yeah.
All right, now spoilery parts.
I think we're gonna have to put the spoilers even before.
I know, but okay. So, let's talk about Alice, when you mentioned Alice. So Alice is, so Charlie goes to school, he's learning to read and write, and Alice is his teacher, and she's the one that recommended Charlie for this experimental program. And then later on, they sort of fall in love. Is that what you want to call it?
I
yes.
guess.
And then as he deals with his emotions for her, he discovers that he has this trauma from his childhood that he doesn't remember, which triggers this whole part of the book where he's trying to remember things that in his past. As his intelligence grows, he can remember more and more, and then he goes to confront and deal with his parents and then his sister as well. Because I mean, when he was a child, everything was sort of fine. I mean, his father ignored him most of the time.
Yeah.
But then when his sister was born, his mother became very protective of her, and sort of started ignoring, and then later abusing him. I mean, defending his sister from himself, and then just making his life really very difficult.
Yeah, and as he was older than his sister. Well, I remember there was this point when, when boys hit puberty.
Yes.
Because he's 32 in the book. So,
yes.
When,
he was like 13, 14.
Yeah. So, they start worrying about girls. And, his mom, instead of explaining things to him and, explaining, this is your sister, she would, beat him and... He would get so scared, so he would pee himself, which would get him another beating.
Yes.
So this kind of triggered this whole series of events where he just couldn't get sexually intimate with Alice.
Yes.
Because he kept seeing Charlie, who was very scared of that moment because he was afraid that he would get beaten up.
Yes.
If he did this. So that is one of the things that kind of shows how past influences your future reactions.
Or how your parents screw you up.
Yeah. And the funny thing is, he actually, in the end, because his dad actually does at one point start telling his mom, look, he has a disability. You have to accept this. You cannot do this to him anymore. Mm-hmm. Although he doesn't help him in the end.
Yes.
But at least he tries. I guess he can get a bit of a point for that. But in the end, Charlie doesn't really want to show his intelligence to his dad.
Yes.
But his mom, he really wants his mom to see that he is finally the son she wants him to be.
And it's so sad that when he comes to her house and she's she's older, she has dementia, and she doesn't, recognize him, and when she does, she sees him as a child, and she's immediately becomes hostile towards him.
Yeah.
But I really liked, I was worried the entire book, what happened between Charlie and his sister, his mother beat the crap out of him, that he can't really do anything anymore with women, or with women that he really loves. Yeah. And I was worrying the entire time, but in the end it wasn't even mentioned. I don't know.
No, I think he just kind of watched her through the keyhole of the bathroom. I think that was the only, and his mom saw him.
Yes. And
she was really mad and you can't do this to your sister. She's your sister, and.
But I think it wasn't anything. I don't think it was anything sexual. It was just that he was wondering about what girls do, but not like in a sexual way, but more like, oh, like she's different from me. What does she do in the bathroom that I don't do? And also because his mother started sort of separating them. So he was curious about his sister because he didn't know. She goes to this room, she has fun or whatever. She
goes to school.
She goes to school and everything. And there was this whole episode with the dog when she came home with the test and she wanted the dog as a reward, and then Lord, yes.
Yeah. So the whole family dynamic was bad. His co-workers were also really bad. They're
horrible.
There was like a million examples of, I don't know, forcing him to dance with like this kind of with a woman, and in a very sexual way,
making fun of him all the time, and leaving him.
They literally had like, if somebody did something stupid, they would say. They pulled a Charlie Gordon, and they would laugh, and he couldn't understand why. And when he got intelligent, obviously he understood, and he realized, oh, they're not my friends.
Yes,
they're literally laughing at me. So,
but it was very interesting when in this book he gains intelligence, and then later on he loses the intelligence. And he goes back to his life. He goes back to work in the bakery. And when he comes back, they start protecting him because they find, I guess, see him as a person when because they saw him when he was gaining intelligence and changing as well. And so I guess they sympathize now because they know what he lost. Because,
But in the end, that's too much for him.
Yes. Because
he does remember that he could defend himself when he was intelligent, and he can't anymore because he can't form the words anymore. So he ultimately goes to a home because that's the only place where people like him are and where he can feel safe. So let's wrap this up.
Okay. So this was an interesting book, definitely. I'm really glad we read it. We read it as part of our Read Harder challenge. This was for the theme.
Epistolary novel.
Yes, I can't pronounce that. So it was interesting. I'm really glad we read it.
No, I think despite our 3 and 3.5, this is really, we don't consider that a bad rating. No. I think it was really good. I just marked down a rating. I think it would be a really
if it was a shorter story, it would be better.
If we read the short story, I think it would have been much more impactful. And that's the only reason, because the writing was really good. I liked that his mental and emotional growth and state were reflected in the way he was writing. So you kind of got even a graphical, vision of what he was going through.
Yes.
And there were so many topics. Like the topics that we mentioned were just a few. You have like also topics about like how scientific research is done, because they were a couple of controls that weren't done, which led to some bad things. And like there was so much, like literally a lot was packed in there, a lot. And it's really thought-provoking. I would say that's the most, the biggest characteristic of this book. It is very thought-provoking, and I would really recommend reading it.
Yes.
Because it wasn't a bad book, and it's really short, so you don't really have to read it for days. But I think it does pack a punch. We really like the book.
We do like it.
And we plan on doing these reviews, regardless of the views we get for them, for all of our Read Harder challenges.
Yes.
So you can expect the River of Thieves next month. I did. That's going to be quite interesting.
Yes.
And not as serious as this,
no.
I guarantee it. So yeah, that's it.
Okay, thank you for watching. Please like, share, subscribe. Talk to us down in the comments if you've read this book. Do you agree with our thoughts and feelings about them?
Yeah. And we will see you in our next video.
Bye.